We're going to talk about why Japanese people live so long. We're going to hit on the nutritional elements of it, the cultural elements, the hygienic elements of that. And these are observations based on having lived in the country for, what is it now? It's about like 11 years, 12 years that I've done this now, kind of off and on. I took a bit of a hiatus, but there's really significant reasons. And as I have grown older, there's a lot more gray than when I first arrived in this country. I think it's a lot of fun to take note. And it's a lot of stuff, I think, regardless of whether or not you lived in Japan, a lot of these you could apply to your own life if you wanted to have that better health span, as they say, as opposed to lifespan. And we can drop into the pipe here, dropping in, talking about, I think the most obvious one would be nutritionally. The things that I've noticed is that Japanese people have a lot of healthy options that they choose from. And where this comes from is this kind of dovetails nicely with the cultural element of their schools. It's something that I've said time and time again, is that the school lunch is one of the greatest cultural accomplishments of this country. And it's a little known fact, or I think those who know, those who don't, that every single elementary school in Japan, of course, has their school lunch, but that every single school in Japan has a nutritionalist that is assigned to the school and making sure that there's a balanced diet that the kids are eating while they're there. And not only is it planned by a nutritionalist, but the knock-on effect of this, of course, is that kids get really early exposure to all kinds of vegetables. They know from a very early age that vegetables are not the enemy. And if you were to ask a random Japanese kid what their favorite food is, it wouldn't be surprising to hear them name something like natto coming up. Natto being one of these fermented foods that you can get here. I think it tastes like beans and bacon. It took some while to train myself to be able to eat it, but it's a superfood. And at first blush, if you haven't trained to eat this, I think it can be quite off-putting for the Western palate. But whether it's natto, whether it's broccoli, whether it's, what is it, lotus, renkon, these kind of things, it pervades all of their school lunches. The kids get used to it. And so from, as I say, a very, very early age, like 5 years old, they're constantly getting exposure to this really healthy stuff. Next, I would say that portion sizes are huge in difference here, in that I've always felt this bit of reverse culture shock when I go back to North America, where when I go out, I get so used to here in izakayas or any kind of restaurant really in Japan, there's much more the likelihood that you're going to order multiple dishes and share those amongst the people at the table rather than order an appetizer and then a main. And this allows you in the East to graze a little bit more rather than feel like you have this kind of social obligation to get through this massive entree that's in front of you. So there's this grazing element, which is important as well. The next thing that I wanted to talk about nutritionally, which is super important and it comes up a lot, I'm not sure of other Asian cultures, but certainly it's a big thing in Japan, is just the amount of fermented food that they eat. So the one example I gave was natto, but there's all kinds of examples of this. There's all kinds of fermented fish that they eat. And when you're eating fermented foods, it's incredible for your gut health. And the more science that we do on gut health, it seems to be directly connected to your mood. Obviously, your digestion is way better. Everything is much better if you're eating fermented foods. So you get introduction early on to really healthy foods. And I'm sure before they're even in elementary school, actually I know this now because I taught for like one day. I went to a nursery school, and their nursery schools are very much the same way. It's that same kind of nutritional balance that they have when you go to the elementary school and then junior high and so on. So it starts early that they get this exposure to a wide variety of healthy nutritional food, and it's not off-putting for them. There's a nutritionist working in their interest, trying to get them the healthiest food that they can. And then there's things like fermented foods that enter the diet, which are obviously a huge contributor to longer life, healthier habits, slimmer waists, Then if you were to go out, there is also the fact that they do much smaller portions, and I think portion sizes are a big thing in North America that do us no justice when we're having these very, very large amounts, usually eating to excess, more so than we're satisfying our hunger. We're going beyond that, and it's not good. Simplest thing in the world to being, I wasn't going to say healthy, to losing weight. It's not a mystery at all. It's almost kind of depressing. It is actually, I think, somewhat divorced of nutrition, is a calorie deficit. If you have a calorie deficit, if you burn more calories than you consume in a day, you lose weight. It's really simple. Doesn't matter if those calories are coming from McDonald's or if they're coming from vegetables. If you're in a calorie deficit, you lose weight. And generally speaking, I think it's much, much easier to get into a calorie deficit in Japan. Now, this is not to say that they don't have an absolute insane amount of variety of ways that you could get fat, because they do. They've got carbs in the convenience store that it's like a bun filled with yakisoba noodles, so it's like carbs and carbs, buns that just have like a stick of butter in them. It's actually impressive, I think, here. You might even have, I know typically North America is famous for like bacon-wrapped bacon with cheese stuffed with bacon. But there are things here, if you did overly indulge, if you didn't have these other habits in place, that you get equally as fat. So that's one angle that I wanted to talk about, was the nutritional element that I notice, which obviously is going to be huge. Now, the other, maybe something that people don't want to acknowledge so freely, is also a cultural detail here, which I'm beating a dead horse, but it bears repeating in this case, is that Japanese people, and as I understand it, and quite a few Asian cultures, have no issue fat shaming you or calling you out on your weight gain. Maybe in a way you shouldn't even associate it with the word shame. It's more just honest. They have no problem telling you, oh, it's like observational. It's not meant maliciously, although I'm sure some people do mean it that way. But they just point it out, and then it allows you to more honestly reflect on your choices if you have been indulging too much. I know that when I first came to Japan, way back in 2013, and I was working at my first school, Matsuo Junior High School, amazing time there. I really enjoyed it. When I was working there, I loved eating the Japanese cuisine. I do think, like I've talked frequently with my fiance about, if I had one cuisine or the other, what would I choose? I would choose Japan. I still like going back and enjoying those cultural foods in my home, like craft dinner. So when I went back on my first holiday to return to North America, I indulged. I ate like crazy there. I had all of the unhealthy things that they don't have here in Japan, and I blimped out hard. I gained, I think it was 6 to 8 kilograms, which if you want to do a rough conversion it's nearly 20 pounds. So it's a lot. I'm a decently tall guy. I'm 186 centimeters, 6'1". And so I can carry it okay, but it shows. I get a very pudgy, approachable, kind face when I put on a bit of weight. And I remember coming back to the school and everybody commented on it. They were like, oh, you're fat now. Which I can laugh about. And as I say, if you realize it's not meant maliciously, then it is a good wake-up call if you're not really being honest with yourself about weight that you have put on. That's the thing about weight gain, is that it's insidious and often how slow it is, that you look at the scale, you're like, oh, it's a little bit more. You look in the mirror, you think it's a little bit more. And it is in honestly reflecting on our day-to-day that we're able to pull out the fact that, oh, we're actually on a course to blimp out and maybe we should do something about it. All of this gaining weight is, I would say, directly connected to your lifespan. I know I'm kind of focusing on just being fat or not, but they are so intrinsically linked together. I think it's worth talking about. So there's the cultural element of the schools when I talk about them getting good exposure. There's the cultural element of the freeness with which people will talk to you regarding if you have gained weight. That's really important. And then here's one that I've been reflecting on most of all recently, and it's got this extra bonus piece of information that connects to it as well as I've reflected on my time here. I'm a huge, huge fan of the onsen culture here, the bath culture here. And the more and more research that comes out, we know that individuals, usually in like Scandinavian countries, that spend 2 to 3 to 4 times a week going to a dry sauna or going to some kind of like bathhouse experience, see a reduction in all-cause mortality by about 50% or some wild figure. So I know that a lot of people focus in Japan on the nutritional element, but I never hear people talking about Japanese people living so long because they go to these onsens, because they go to these little neighborhood sentos, where I think this, if we look at the research, plays a huge, huge part in it. So I think if you want to live a little longer, you should be getting to the sauna if you possibly can. It's rare here, although I'm pretty sure this is actually ubiquitous for Gold's gyms around the world, that at least in Japan, I haven't confirmed in North America, but every Gold's gym in Japan has a dry sauna and sometimes a bubble bath that you can go into, which is really, really good if you want to get a good sweat as well. I think that if you can get to the gym, obviously that's going to help you, but then if you can tie into it this dry sauna, we know from the research coming out now that it's huge, and Japanese people love this bath culture. Some of the most amazing facilities I've seen in Japan are dedicated to this. Since I've moved out into the countryside again, just amazing infrastructure in the countryside. I think the Japanese government is very aware that you need the place to be nice so that people might live there when there's such a preference that people would live in the larger cities. And they're so nice. You can, like the one that I live near, it costs, during weekdays, it's like $1 less. And it's about 580 yen. And it's got 3 different saunas in it. It has 5 different pool types that you can go into. It has an outdoor area. It's got steam baths. It's amazing. And it's super popular. You see people there all the time. So this is not something that Japanese people need to be sold on. It's intrinsic to the culture. They love this. And I never really see people talking about it in Japan. I see people talking about the dry saunas and this kind of stuff, as I say, in Scandinavian countries, maybe like Finland or other places near there. But I never hear it about Japan. And I think that this is equally as important as to the nutritional benefits that you get from living here as well. So the final one that I have, and this is like, I can say this because I actually have the data to back it up now. This is, don't let your eyes deceive you. This isn't a fancy Apple Watch. It's a Huawei, but it performs its function well enough, which is tracking my sleep. And another interesting cultural detail, I think lesser known that people are aware of, is that Japanese people, unlike North American people, although I know different people have different habits in North America, but usually when you're going to work, the habit is in North America that if you are going to bathe, you do so in the morning. I always thought that made real practical sense. You just slept through the whole night, maybe you were sweating in your bed, you get up in the morning and you should take a shower. And you can have a nice shower to begin with. You can have a cold kind of blast at the end of it, and that's gonna, pump you up, make you more alert for the day. I think it really is important, and it's healthy just to do that anyways. But Japanese people most commonly have a shower, or usually more often a bath, at the end of the day. And I can see the wisdom in this, in that you've had a big, long, sweaty day or whatever it might be. And so before you go to bed, you want to have a bath or shower then. I would sometimes do this, but more usually, if I'm going to take an afternoon bath or shower, it would be after the gym, and it would kind of occur around 5 o'clock, something like that, but never directly before bed. And I've been trying to figure out how to get deeper sleep. And I was talking to the AIs, and they said that if you've not already tried it, one of the easiest ways that you can increase your deep sleep is to have a really hot bath before you go to bed, which might seem counterintuitive, but it's the heat that makes then your body tries to cool itself down after, and it's that cooling down that lets you go to sleep easier, gets you into a deeper state of sleep faster. And now I've tested this. I've been doing these 43 degree baths, 42 degree baths before I go to bed and right before. So like it's from there that I brush my teeth and then go to sleep. And the data doesn't lie. Where I was struggling to get much deep sleep, when I've done this now, I get way more deep sleep in the course of a night. And I know for a fact that if you get more deep sleep, this is where you're going to get all sorts of healthy hormonal release. You're going to do a lot of body repair. You're going to have a more vitalized next day as a result of this much, much better sleep. They say that sleep is the fountain of youth. There's a fantastic book called Why We Sleep, and it's amazing. I think it's Matthew Walker. I can't remember. He's on a bunch of podcasts, but it's well worth the read, and it just goes into how important sleep is for us. And what I'm observing is that I think unintentionally, because Japanese people so often have that just before bath and then go to bed, that they're getting way, way deeper sleep as a result of that, and then reaping all of those benefits where it was a peaceful thing for them to do, but I don't know that they're all thinking about, oh, this will increase my deep sleep and then therefore my longevity. It's kind of a happenstance that they're getting this benefit from it, that culturally it's ingrained, but they didn't know that it was having these extra positive benefits. So I think these are some really cool reasons why the Japanese population lives for longer. I don't know if we want to adopt all of them. Some people may not be able to ever tolerate natto, or shaming each other more for how chubby we've become. But you can't ignore them when you do notice that Japanese people live for so long, and I think that's pretty cool, and I wanted to share it with you. So I hope you liked the video. This was fun. I haven't done a Japan video. I know I've been talking about the business so much, but this was on my mind recently, and I thought I would share. So have a good one. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.